The Everest Grand Hotel stood like a palace of wealth and power, its golden logo gleaming under the city lights. Inside, chandeliers sparkled, and guests in designer suits and evening gowns sipped champagne. But tonight, something unusual was about to happen, something no one saw coming. James Carter, the billionaire owner of the Everest Grand, stood at his penthouse office window, gazing down at the empire he had built. He had it all: money, power, respect. Yet, rumors had reached him. Whispers of poor service, employee mistreatment, and standards crumbling from within. That couldn't be true. Could it? His fingers tapped against his desk, eyes locked on his laptop screen. Customer complaints. Dozens of them. Staff was rude. Rooms are dirty. Manager is a tyrant. A deep frown settled on James's face. This is my hotel. My name. And it's being destroyed. There was only one way to uncover the truth. He had to see it for himself. Not as a billionaire, but as a nobody. James stepped into the employee entrance, his tailored suits replaced with a faded janitor's uniform. His face was slightly unshaven, his hair unkempt. His name tag read Jim. No one recognized him. Perfect. Inside, the contrast was shocking. The dazzling elegance of the lobby faded into a back hallway filled with peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights. The air smelled of sweat and overworked bodies. A woman in her 50s, Maria, eyed him with curiosity. New guy. James nodded. Yeah. First day. She gave a knowing sigh. Welcome to the trenches, Jim. Just stay out of Mr. Grant's way. Grant. Maria exchanged a look with Derek, a young bellboy with dark circles under his eyes. The manager. He's difficult. Derek snorted. Difficult is putting it lightly. James filed that away. Grant. He needed to watch him. Day one was an eye-opener. James scrubbed floors, emptied trash cans, and watched. What he saw left him stunned. A receptionist, eyes red from exhaustion, was berated by a guest over a minor mistake. The manager did nothing. Instead, he sneered at her and muttered, "Get it together or you're out." In the kitchen, stale bread and near-expired food were served to employees. Maria whispered that Grant had cut costs, choosing profit over people. Then came the final straw. A waiter, Lucas, spilled wine on a guest's expensive suit. A mistake. Nothing more. But the guest raged, demanding he be fired. Grant didn't hesitate. "You're done here," Grant spat. "Pack your things." Lucas's face drained of color. "Sir, please." "I said you're done." James clenched his fists. Enough. He had seen enough. He stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "That's not your call." Grant spun, eyes flashing with irritation. "Excuse me." James straightened, peeling off his name tag. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, his billionaire aura returning in an instant. "I own this hotel." Gasps echoed through the room. Maria's eyes widened. Derek's mouth fell open. Grant went pale. "Mr. Carter," Grant stammered, stepping back. I had no idea." "No, you didn't." James cut him off. His tone was cold, dangerous. And that's exactly the problem. James fired Grant on the spot. Employees cheered. Relief spread through the air like fresh oxygen. But something still felt off. He should have been satisfied. He had taken down the tyrant, exposed the truth. So why did the tension in his chest remain? Then, a receptionist approached him hesitantly. Her hands trembled. "Sir, there's something you need to see." James followed her to the security office. She played back footage from the hotel's hidden cameras. What he saw chilled him to the core. Grant was only a puppet. Someone else was pulling the strings. The footage showed secret meetings, money being exchanged in back rooms, staff whispering nervously, a shadowy figure in a suit always watching. James's grip tightened on the desk. This isn't over. The camera feed flickered. Then darkness swallowed James Carter. A sharp, cold pressure pressed against his temple, a gun. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, but he forced himself to stay calm. You really should have stayed out of this, the voice whispered, laced with amusement. James didn't move. His mind raced. Who was behind this? Grant was a fraud, a puppet. The real mastermind was still in the shadows. Then, light flooded back in as the emergency power kicked on. The attacker flinched for a split second, just enough time. James slammed his elbow backward, knocking the gun aside. He spun, throwing a punch, but his assailant ducked, shoving him against the security desk. The gun clattered to the floor. James's eyes locked onto his attacker. A man in a dark suit with an angular face and eyes full of quiet menace. Security rushed in, drawn by the commotion, but the man bolted. James lunged after him, crashing through the door and into the dimly lit hallway. James ran. Footsteps pounded ahead as the attacker weaved through the back corridors of the hotel, slipping past stunned employees. Stop him! James barked, but the man was fast. Too fast. They burst into the parking garage, tires screeching as a black car roared to life. The man dove inside, slamming the door shut. James sprinted, reaching for the handle, but the vehicle peeled out, nearly clipping him as it sped into the night. Breathing hard, he pulled out his phone. Get me a plate number, he snapped to security. I want to know who that man is. His hands curled into fists. This wasn't just corruption. This was a conspiracy, and someone didn't want him to uncover it. James didn't sleep. He stayed in the security room, combing through footage. The same man appeared multiple times, lingering in the lobby, watching from the shadows, always observing. Then, another face caught his eye. Marcus Langston, a name James knew well, an investor, a former friend, a man he had once trusted. Marcus had stakes in the hotel, but James had been pushing him out, cutting ties. Had Marcus been running things from the shadows, using Grant as a smokescreen? James's jaw tightened. This was no longer about bad management. This was personal. Morning came, but James didn't rest. He called an emergency meeting with the hotel's senior staff. When they arrived, tension filled the air. Maria and Derek sat stiffly. Others exchanged nervous glances. James cleared his throat. Let's get one thing straight. I'm done playing games. Someone is manipulating this hotel from the inside, and I intend to find out who. Silence. Then, Maria spoke softly. Sir, if you go after them, you might not like what you find. James's eyes darkened. I already don't like what I've found. A buzz from his phone. Security had traced the attacker's car to a warehouse on the city's edge. James grabbed his coat. I'm going to find out exactly who's behind this. The warehouse loomed in front of him, a rusted relic on the outskirts of town. James slipped inside, his breath clouding in the cold air. A single light bulb swung from the ceiling, illuminating a table. On it sat a file with his name on it. His stomach twisted. This was too easy. Then, the door slammed shut. A lock clicked into place. From the shadows, Marcus Langston stepped forward, slow claps echoing off the metal walls. James, James, James? Always so predictable. James's muscles tensed. You're behind this. Marcus smirked. You never did learn how to share, did you? You forced me out, and now you act surprised that I fought back. By destroying my hotel? James's voice was low, dangerous. Marcus shrugged. It was never yours to begin with. You built it, sure. But money runs this world. And I've been running Everest Grand for a long time. James took a step forward. Not anymore. Marcus sighed. You still don't get it. He nodded toward the darkness. Let me show you what happens to people who cross me. A door creaked open. Heavy footsteps. Then, a figure emerged. James's stomach dropped. It was Grant, alive, smiling, and holding a gun. James's breath hitched. Grant was supposed to be dead. He had seen the security footage, the man had been taken out. Yet here he was, standing before him, gun in hand, a smug smile curling at his lips. Surprised. Grant taunted, cocking the weapon. You shouldn't be. I told you before. You don't belong in this world, James. James's mind raced. Marcus had set this up. Every step had been orchestrated, leading him here. Trapped. Vulnerable. You faked your death, James said, stalling for time. To what? Cover your tracks? Make me chase a ghost? Grant chuckled, shaking his head. Oh, James. It was never about covering my tracks. It was about making sure you ran straight into them. And you did. Marcus stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the concrete. You were always too stubborn for your own good. I knew you wouldn't stop digging. So I made sure you'd dig your own grave instead. James clenched his fists. You think I didn't prepare for this? You think I walked in here alone? He was bluffing. He had come alone. But Marcus and Grant didn't know that. Marcus studied him, then smirked. I don't think. I know. And that's what makes this so much fun. A sharp whistle cut through the air. Heavy footsteps echoed as more men emerged from the shadows. Armed. Silent. James took a slow breath. He had fought his way out of worse situations. But not with a gun to his head and nowhere to run. Then, a loud crash. The warehouse doors burst open. Smoke billowed in, swallowing the room in chaos. Gunfire erupted. James dove behind a metal crate as bullets ricocheted off the walls. He caught a glimpse of black-clad figures storming in, tactical gear gleaming under the flickering lights. His men? No, he hadn't called for backup. So who had? Grant cursed, firing into the smoke. Marcus backed away, fury flashing across his face. This wasn't part of the plan, he spat. James seized the opportunity. He lunged, knocking Grant's gun aside. A struggle. Fists. A well-placed knee to Grant's ribs sent him staggering. James turned, just as Marcus raised a weapon. A single shot rang out. Pain exploded through James's side. He staggered, clutching his ribs, crimson staining his shirt. His vision blurred, but he forced himself to stay upright. The smoke thinned. More figures flooded the warehouse. James caught a glimpse of a woman leading them, a familiar silhouette. Maria. But before he could process it, a black SUV screeched to a halt outside. Marcus and Grant bolted, vanishing into the night. James dropped to one knee, pain lancing through him. Maria rushed to his side, pressing down on his wound. We need to go. Now. He looked at her, his mind spinning. How did you? Her expression was grim. I'll explain later. But James, this goes deeper than we thought. And they're not done with you yet. Sirens wailed in the distance. James clenched his jaw. This wasn't over. James gritted his teeth as Maria helped him into the back of a sleek black SUV. His side burned, the gunshot wound pulsing with agony. The tires screeched as the vehicle sped off, weaving through the darkened streets. Where are we going? James muttered, his vision blurring slightly from the blood loss. Maria kept her eyes on the road. Somewhere safe. You need to stay conscious. James exhaled sharply, trying to fight the darkness threatening to pull him under. You saved me back there. Why? Maria didn't look at him. Because you're not the only one after Marcus and Grant. They've betrayed more than just you. James studied her, forcing himself to stay focused. Who do you work for? A tense silence filled the car. Finally, she said, let's just say, I have my own reasons for wanting them gone. James could tell she wasn't giving him the full truth. But right now he had bigger problems. His hotel, his empire, everything was still under threat. Suddenly, Maria cursed under her breath and yanked the wheel hard to the right. A pair of black SUVs cut across their path. Headlights flared, blinding them. Hold on, Maria shouted. The car swerved violently, tires screaming against the pavement. Gunfire erupted from the pursuing vehicles. Bullets shattered the rear window. James ducked as glass rained down around them. They found us already? James growled, forcing himself upright. Maria gritted her teeth. They were waiting. They must have tracked us. James reached for a handgun stashed under the seat. He twisted his body, ignoring the pain, and fired 2 precise shots. One SUV veered off course, slamming into a streetlight. The other kept coming. Maria accelerated. We're not losing them like this. The car roared forward, weaving through the city streets at breakneck speed. James reloaded, his hands slick with sweat. Then up ahead, a roadblock, more black SUVs, more armed men. Trap! James shouted. Maria slammed the brakes. The tires skidded. They were surrounded. No escape. The remaining SUV behind them stopped, doors swinging open. Figures in dark suits emerged, weapons trained on them. Then, from the shadows, a familiar figure stepped forward. Marcus. His cold smile sent a chill through James's spine. Going somewhere? Marcus asked, voice dripping with amusement. James's grip tightened on his gun, but he was outnumbered. Maria was already lowering her weapon, her expression unreadable. Marcus took a step closer. You should have stayed in your tower, James. Now you're in my world. And here. He gestured, and more men moved in, weapons gleaming under the streetlights. You don't get to call the shots. James exhaled sharply. Trapped. Wounded. This wasn't over. But he was out of moves. For now.